Lisa, 50, married, and a teacher, lived a well-ordered life with no room for surprises. She didn't believe in superstitions, preferring a clear plan where every action was predictable and expected. That morning, however, stepping into the staff room, she sensed a subtle shift in the atmosphere, a premonition of something mysterious. Walking down the hallway, she heard the echo of her own footsteps, and her colleagues' faces seemed as familiar as ever. Only Gustavo, a student who always sat at the back of the classroom, stood out with his lazy smile and a gaze that spoke more than it should. For a long time, Lisa had convinced herself he was just like any other student, but that day their eyes met, and time seemed to freeze. A faint blush crept across Lisa's cheeks, and Gustavo noticed, a sly smile confirming it. She quickly looked away and, trying to maintain her composure, began the lesson. Throughout the class, however, she felt Gustavo's heavy gaze upon her, laden with a meaning she couldn't decipher. Suddenly, a folded piece of paper dropped to the floor. Picking it up, Lisa saw a short note. "I want to meet you at recess today." Her heart pounded wildly, and a storm of questions erupted in her mind. Gustavo merely glanced at her before pretending to take notes again. The bell rang, and Lisa felt recess approaching. She didn't know what she feared more, meeting Gustavo or her own thoughts. The minutes dragged on agonizingly slowly. She needed to focus on the lesson, but something within her pulsed, and she couldn't ignore it. The universe seemed to be testing her, sending signs that only she noticed. Every word written on the board felt heavier, and the students' stares more intense. And Gustavo, always the last to look away, seemed to be testing the boundaries between them. His gaze held something that transcended the teacher-student dynamic, something unsettling and almost offensive. As she explained the symbolism of Machado de Assis, Lisa felt her face flush. Gustavo knew she had noticed his gaze, and a part of her couldn't tear herself away from this dangerous game. Suddenly, she heard the rustle of paper being folded. Hesitation. She continued writing on the board, trying to ignore the note that had landed on her desk. Her heart hammered. Maintaining composure, she picked up the slip of paper. It read, "Recess, meet me in the third-floor bathroom." A simple sentence, yet each letter felt impossibly heavy. Her body reacted before her mind, her breath caught. Her voice trembled as she resumed her explanation, but Gustavo, of course, noticed. A silent victory played across his face, as if he knew the seed had been sown. Only minutes remained until recess, but they stretched into an eternity. Thoughts whirled in her head. This can't be happening. This is madness. The bell rang, and students sprang from their seats. Lisa knew she had to make a decision before it was too late. Sometimes in life, situations arise that seemingly should just be ignored, but some unknown force pushes one in the wrong direction. This is exactly what Lisa felt when she opened Gustavo's note. A neatly folded page on which was scrawled in black ink, "Third-floor bathroom during break." Simple and direct. Her heart skipped a beat. A note like this from a student could be a real bombshell. Lisa looked at Gustavo, sitting at the back of the class, appearing to listen attentively, but she knew every move he made was carefully calculated. And the most terrifying part, she felt something stir within her, something she should never have felt. The rest of the lesson passed in futile attempts to concentrate, but words tumbled out as if from an automatic machine that had lost connection with its operator. Each of Gustavo's glances unequivocally asked, "So, are you coming or not?" Recess, with the teachers' voices mingling with the students' lively chatter in the hallways, felt like navigating an unpredictable current heading towards dangerous shores. The need for a decision weighed heavily, and the relentless ticking of the clock sounded like a mocking accompaniment to her indecision. What happened next was inexplicable. Perhaps the monotony of her structured life had become an unbearable burden. Or perhaps it was Gustavo's gaze, that youthful sparkle that disregarded all consequences. The note still lay in her pocket, as if its compact size could diminish the scale of the impending problem. Third-floor bathroom during break. The phrase echoed insistently in her mind. The bell made her jump, wanting to run away from the note, from the thoughts leading to madness. But her feet seemed to carry her to the third floor on their own, bypassing the staff room. The corridors were almost deserted. Only a few students hurried past, engrossed in their conversations. Inside, there was no room for laughter, only the echo of her heels, amplified by the silence, as if the floor itself betrayed her presence. She had to stop at the bathroom door. Her heart pounded wildly. The sound of dripping water felt like a blow to her consciousness. The thought of fleeing, of what was at stake, her husband, her job, her reputation, flashed through her mind. But then a muffled whisper, which chilled her stomach, broke the silence. "Teacher, is that you?" Her hand reaching for the doorknob trembled. A deep breath. The door opened. Gustavo stood inside. A tension hung in the air, something alive, yet absent from her own life. Words caught in her throat. Attempts to say this was madness, that it shouldn't be happening. But before she could utter a sound, Gustavo stepped forward with a defiant, admiring smile. The sound of the door clicking shut made her heart skip a beat. The cold bathroom walls seemed to conspire to kill any sense of guilt. Every movement, every breath echoed like thunder in that ominous silence. She needed to run, to leave Gustavo there, but she had no strength. He stood motionless with a steady gaze unsuitable for his age. "You came," he almost whispered, but his voice resonated like a shout within her. No answer came. Words vanished, leaving only the deafening throb of her heart. Gustavo drew closer, and the scent of youth, of rebellion, rushed in like a forbidden aroma. It wasn't just attraction, it was an irresistible magnet. Doubt and certainty mingled in a vortex from which there was no escape. "This is wrong," she finally managed to force out, but her voice trembled, sounding unconvincing. Gustavo took another step. "Then why are you here?" The question cut like a blade, severing all excuses. There was no answer. Time slowed, his hand touched hers, a slight tremor in his fingers, and the world paused, as if they were alone in a hostile universe. Footsteps in the corridor made her momentarily consider the consequences of being discovered, but the thought vanished, replaced by an uncontrollable desire. It was in that moment, full of passion, that she pulled Gustavo towards her. His touch beneath her shirt, a kiss that burned her lips, a desire she had never experienced before emerged. Then, as if in a trance, she pulled down his pants and began. About half an hour spent there sated their passion. She stood, leaning against the closed door, trying to catch her breath. Gustavo smiled with the confident smirk only youth possesses, casually adjusting his uniform as if nothing had happened. "You're incredible, you know that?" he said, and left before she could respond. His words echoed in her mind. She stood frozen, staring at her reflection, and wanted to laugh at herself. The sounds of voices outside grew louder, but only one question resonated in her head. What now? When the door closed, the world seemed to vanish for a few seconds. She leaned against the sink, as if physical contact could compensate for the emotional breakdown. The silence was deafening, yet not enough to drown out the echo of the choice she had made. Her gaze searched the mirror for some version of herself that could offer comfort. A stronger, more consistent Lisa who knew how to handle the chasm she had created. But the reflection was cruel, broken into crooked lines, like cracks in her own soul. "What have you done, Lisa?" she whispered, but her voice sounded foreign, as if the echo mocked her from the mirror. Self-assurance and calm abandoned her, leaving a gaping void. Her soul, so recently resolute, now bled from the realization of what she had done. Tears seemed forever frozen deep inside, but treacherous cracks on the mirror's surface stubbornly reminded her some actions leave an indelible mark. Distant footsteps echoing from the corridor seemed to yank her from her heavy thoughts, bringing her back to reality. She imagined muffled laughter and whispers seeping through the walls, as if every corner of this place had witnessed her downfall, as if the corridors had become a haven for thousands of invisible eyes and ears, greedily absorbing every sound and gesture. Gathering her courage, she took a deep breath and resolutely pushed the door open, eager to leave that cursed place. But something intangible, like an invisible weight, continued to linger in the air, dogging her every step. And so her life continued, shrouded in a veil of secrecy that she keeps to this day. There are moments when she feels like a prisoner of the past, trapped in a cage of her own memories. She longs unbearably to share her secret with her husband, to unburden her soul, but fear binds her. Fear that he might do something irreversible. And now, addressing an imaginary confidant, she asks, "What would you have done if you were in my shoes? Do you think I did the right thing, treating one of my students that way?"